All right, so today I'm going to tie something a little simpler, just basic standard pattern. Okay, as I kind of start to fill my boxes for the fall, I start to, most of my fall patterns are pretty simple, especially for trout around here in Northern California. And one is a variation of a classic bird's nest. And this color combination, I'm not really sure where it started or how it became kind of a Northern California staple, but I picked it up from a guide by the name of Jason Lozano, one of my mentors and dear friends. And he was fishing it as like a late season Caddis pattern on the feather for steelhead. And I've kind of adapted it to fish everywhere. I fish it, feather, yuba, sack. It's a great summer Caddis pattern on like the pit. When I was guiding up there, I would fish it there a ton. And it's basically what it is just a black bead bird's nest with a couple little variations. And as I tie it, you can kind of pick up just some general tips on tying basic bird's nest and kind of how I do it and how I make them mine. So the first thing I do is the hook. I use 3761, okay, 14, 16, whatever you want to do, okay. And again, like with a lot of my flies, I'm going to always start that thread right behind the bead, okay. And again, as I always say, on a lot of trout flies, these bugs are a lot trimmer and thinner than we think. And to imitate them best, we have to minimize the amount of material that we use on the fly. Okay, so a lot of that has to do with minimizing the back and forth on that hook shank. So first thing I'm going to do with this guy is I'm going to tie in a tail. And for all my bird's nests, I use this kind of gold Mallard flank. These are select dyed wood duck, but you can get them in just dyed wood duck. And I always kind of loosely wrap it, kind of make sure the length is where I want it. Okay, shorten it up. And then as I wrap, I stack those thread wraps, like I always say, right next to each other. And I'm using the material, if you look, to create a little bit of a natural taper. Okay, if you notice, I always will keep my tails on my bird's nest probably a little longer than most people. I couldn't tell you why. It's just what I do. Then I'm going to tie in, and one of the variations here is chartreuse wire. Okay, this is small, and again, tack it right to the side to give it that nice wide profile. Okay, then I'll work the thread back down. This is not a mayfly nymph, right? Like, so trimness is not as critical, okay, as taper. Next, I'm going to take olive midge flash, but you can use anything. I like the midge flash. And I'll just give that one little wrap or two in there, because that's just going to be my flash rib. At that point, one thing I have found in my experience with tying bird's nests, and I've tied a lot of bird's nests, is it's all about the dubbing. Okay, and the best bird's nest dubbing, especially in the style that a lot of us fish or tie them in California, kind of that buggy bird's nest. I use what's called Buggy Nymph. It started as Paxton's Buggy Nymph. It's now just Buggy Nymph because Paxton does not make it. The Ravel kids, well, they're not kids, they're adults now. But George Ravel and his brother made this stuff for Paxton for a long time. From what I understand, it's just chopped up yarn. Okay, but it's these short, real nice, short, stiff fibers. Okay, and they can kind of be twisted down hard to make a nice trim dubbing, or they can be used loose to make a nice buggy dubbing. So what I do for the body part of this is I'm going to twist them tight. Okay. And again, anytime with dubbing, less is more. Okay. And so one key to creating a kind of a nice bird's nest is that taper. So I kind of space it out and then wrap those wraps a little closer as we get up. Now, with this, you can always kind of throw a little extra on there, you know, because a lot of times this is imitating a caddis. And, you know, a caddis pupa is usually a little chubbier than your standard mayfly. So you kind of, there we go. Then I'll take that midge flash, wrap it around. And again, with any of this stuff, you know, it's variation, right? Like you can swap out stuff, not use it, use it. But this is a color pattern that I've always done pretty well with. Trim it off, take that wire, and I try to space the wire in between the flash. Okay. Then wrap it up right there. Okay. Next, some people call them the wings, some people call them the legs. Same mallard flank. I use this on all my bird's nests. Okay. Kind of eyeball it. I like the tips right even with the back of the fly. That's kind of my, I don't want to say profile, but kind of how I basically lay it out. And, you know, you can go a little longer if you want. Some people like longer wings or legs, whatever you want to call them. But that's kind of how I eyeball my setup. You can always pull them if they're a little long. Now, one thing I do here, and this is where kind of the tips and the tricks come in. You know, that's a pretty standard bird's nest at this point. I take this dubbing, and one thing that's nice about this, and this is where I say, you know, a good bird's nest, how we like them, I guess we as in, you know, kind of how we've come to like them in Northern California, or maybe all of fly fishing, I don't know, is a good kind of how it mats together like this. You got this kind of mat, and I set that mat and I kind of cone it around almost like you would like a soft hackle. Then I do a loose couple thread wraps. I just kind of pick it and then I pull those back, kind of pin it back like that. Okay. Then I'll take those little fuzzy freebie fibers that came off, and I'll take a little and tight, it's even a little much, tight wrap. Okay, move it up in there, and then I'll give it a collar. Okay, and what that does is just kind of pin back those fibers, and you can see you get that nice buggy bird's nest that everybody's trying to get, but at the same time it doesn't look like this just ball. Okay, then tie it off. And you got a black bead, olive chartreuse ribbed flash body bird's nest. I guess, if you want to give it all the names, but I just call it a black bead olive bird's nest. Tie some up, you know, tie the naturals. The natural, or what we call natural, you know, same kind of color pattern. Okay. All right, have a great day, guys.